What method do you use? Because you lay everything out. You like to lay it out digitally, right?
Well, here's the thing. I have Traktor at home. I used to have CDJs at home, but I have a small place. It took up a lot of space. So I got I have an S4 at home, and same monitors you have over there actually.
Yeah.
But I do other stuff too, since I produce, I don't spend a lot of time DJing at home. But I do spend a lot of time listening to music and toying around with things. So he sees that.
It's funny. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I really don't DJ that much. Now that I have it all digital, I'm studying my songs by listening to them.
Yeah.
And then coming up with a concept of how I want to lay out a track list, and then going there and then recording it live, and listening to that a couple times to kind of get it through. But the vinyl days is when I was grinding
on it all the time.
On it all the time.
All the time, and you kind of had to be. But I do the same thing too, and for my recorded sets, for sets that go on podcasts, I lay everything out in Ableton first, and then I record it live. But then I know where all my that's because you want interesting transitions and stuff like that when you're doing a studio mix.
I've thought about that, and I've done it so long.
Yeah.
With the vinyl of just I didn't have that option in the beginning, and I've gotten so used to my workflow of coming up with some of those happy surprises that maybe you drop it too early or too late, and it actually ends up working out. But at the same time, I also know that stress of okay, this has to be the perfect run.
Yeah.
And I think that helps me with playing live.
Right.
But at the same time, it really intrigues me to lay it out in Ableton. And I think though that if I did go down that rabbit hole, I would spend probably a lot longer on my mixes because my OCD would just allow me to be oh my god, this one has to be perfect. Every bar,
Ask me how a mix takes me a month, and that's how. I mean,
right.
Seriously, my Armory podcast mixes, my Music for the Punks podcast, all of my podcast
and
mixes.
You're talking about once you have all the songs you want.
Well, the whole process. Because I'll have tracks that I know that I want to go into a mix, and then I'll spend a month looking for tracks that I that based around those, and I have a folder. I drop everything into the folder, and I keep trying to start it. I'm okay, I just start kind of figure out where I want to start from.
Right.
Once I get that going, I do everything is mixed in key. So I'm just going through and planning transitions out. I'm kind of thinking about where I want things to go, in terms of an arc, and putting stuff together in Ableton that way.
Okay.
But along the way, I'm finding new tracks. Because I'll keep looking for tracks all the way up until I lay down the last two. Because I can always change something. It's laid out in Ableton, right?
Right.
And it offers me sometimes you put two things together, and you're it sounds okay.
Right.
But it's not great. So it takes me a month to do all that, and then finally record the mix last.
I think it takes me longer, but only because I'm in the curation phase.
Right.
For a long time. I feel to get the 12 or 15 tracks that I want for the specific sound I'm looking for in a certain mix, I pass up on a lot of songs. I'm oh, it's so good, but that might be better for a different mix that I'm going to go for a different thing.
Right.
And then I get stuck, looking for tracks for that one mix, right? Which sometimes might take 3 or 4 months from the start of... right now I'm kind of in that stage again where I'm okay, I'm a couple weeks into that. I've got about 5 or 6 tracks that I've downloaded that I'm starting to kind of think about.
Right.
Whether or not those 5 or 6 end up being on the final mix, you never know. I mean, sometimes stuff hits the cutting room floor at the very end.
Oh, yeah, the same thing happens for me.
Which is hard because I never really want to promise anyone that I'll put something on their mix because...
Well, because it might not... It's at the end of the day, it's not. It may or may not happen. It's really hard to know how everything's going to play out at that point.
Right.
I don't tell people that either. Which
has nothing to do with the song being good. It's just the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because...
Well, tell me something do you think your mixes are a reflection of how you play live, or do you think they're something else entirely? Because for some DJs, I feel what you get in a studio mix from them is not the same experience.
I look at a mix, and I kind of look at it as its own individual thing.
Right.
But I definitely try to find that fine line between it being listenable and also being danceable. Because I feel a lot of really good techno that I hear when I go out sometimes I'll hear it, I'm like, oh, this is great, but
it's not dance music.
I want to be like laying under a tree.
Yeah. I feel you on that.
On a nice Sunday afternoon, maybe like, hanging out to listen to this, like, or weirding out to this.
It's like loungy.
A little more loungy, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll hear something and I'll be like, I don't think I could sit down and listen to this. It's too intense. It's too much. It's like it's like peak hour. But then sometimes you have to realize that like maybe the mix is intended for that. Like,
right.
So I'm always kind of thinking those ideas when I'm doing the mix. My mixes are more or less, I think, similar in the sense of kind of like how I like them to progress and how I like the intensity to build and things like that. But what I really change up now is what time of night I'm playing.
All right.
Okay, you and I played Breakfast of Champions back to back, and I think that was probably one of the hardest places to play in the sense of like, what time is it? Because you're playing it.
You're playing at 1, but you're also playing at a place at a show that started at 6 a.m.
Right. So who's 1 o'clock?
Yeah. Who's what? Exactly.
Is it someone's 1 o'clock in the afternoon that's been up all night, or someone who got up at a reasonable time and went to the party? So I think that's a tough one to plan for. You almost have to. That
was fun for me though. At 1 o'clock, I kind of thought, I was like, all right, well, half of this set is for the people who've been here who've been here since just now, and for the other half, let's play for like it's peak hour, like it's almost over. So give them something like half of my set was deep, and the other half was very not that.
Right. So I think that to finalize the question is, now I look at it like, okay, the best thing is once the promoter tells me my set time,
then you're thinking about.
Then I start thinking about the specifics of my set, outside of the songs that I want to play. So I might have had some songs in mind that I just got, but then it's like, oh, I'm opening tonight. Well, I probably shouldn't play that heater that like, that just came out that I really want to play. Maybe I'll hold out for something else. Or am I playing right after the headliner? I have to come out banging. Because I can't like
slack on the energy.
No, I can't slack on the energy, and that's kind of why I think I like to open a lot. Is you get like a big range.
You have a lot of wider range of what you can do. It's true. Actually, knowing that you're an opener, you kind of like, okay, I kind of know what I got to do here. If you're going after a headliner, a little bit harder, for sure.
I mean, they're all difficult in different ways. I think opening can be really hard too. Trying to hold it back and being like, okay, let's. I think I'm driving the boat here.
Yeah, you are.
If you're curious.
I have not even touched the controller.
Yeah, and they're all different. I mean, they're all different, and I think that's what's cool about DJing.
Yeah.
But I think that comes over time.
Right.
Of like being able to understand that, and I think a lot of that comes from having your ego in check.
For sure.
And looking at the party as like a whole.
As a whole. Yeah. Well, you're just part. We're all parts of it. Not always about you.
So those are the things I think about now.
Yeah.
It's really more about like what time am I DJing at, and then, but more or less, what you hear on my mixes, you're gonna hear me play live.
Yeah.
At some point, whether or not it's at 9 p.m. or 2 a.m.
Right.
Just depends on that time.